I could have figured this out if I spoke more to the elder years in my first year. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about university. A very simple way to chunk your life into blocks and look at it from afar is through education. You look at preschool, school, university, and post-university. Now obviously this is not the path that everyone takes, but it is a very traditional route that many of us have gone through or are going through. At the tender age of 18, when you enter the world of university, and spend the next couple of years there, up to 6 years if you're doing medicine. That is a big chunk of your life in a very important period as well, that is going to determine, I think, your habits and your priorities for the next couple of years, if not your whole adult life. It's the moment where you're becoming an adult, the moment where you're gaining a certain level of independence and given a certain level of freedom that you didn't have before in school, where you can actually stay in bed all day and nobody's going to come knocking at your door to see if you've watched the lecture. I graduated from medical school during the COVID pandemic about 2 years ago now. And I've had a lot of time to think about my experiences, and now 2 years later to see still the habits that I started in university, how they're impacting me now. For me, university is almost like a crossroads where you've got a million choices in front of you and you pick a path and you start going down it. Now, this sounds very fatalistic, and I'm not saying that you can't change paths or that there aren't other multiple paths leading from the path you've chosen. But I do think it sets the trajectory or mood of your life for a good period of time. So it's not something to be taken lightly. Now, if you had the chance to go back to your day one of university or starting off, how would you approach those next 3 to 6 years of your life? What advice would you give yourself, and would you approach it differently? In this video, I want to talk about the 5 things that I would have done differently if I could do medical school again. Number 1, I would definitely say try new things. And I feel like this would be on everyone's list. I remember my sister telling me to make sure that I really tried lots of different societies, which are basically like clubs at university organized by students for basically anything you can think of, whether it be cooking or kickboxing or theatre. And I did take that advice for my first year. I signed up to lots of different societies, I went to their taster sessions and met lots of different people, but that very quickly died away. As soon as the stress of medical school kicked in and the realization that there was so much to learn and to get through, I really focused on that and let the importance of trying new things slip away. And if I could go to uni again, that's something that I'd want to keep up during those 5 years of medical school. Every year, trying a different skill, trying a new activity, and really making the most of everything that's available. I don't think there's a time in your life where you're going to have this many stimulants or activities that are proposed to you in such an accessible way. And I think it's so important to make the most of that, because you have no idea, maybe that one thing that you try in second year is going to be your hobby for the rest of your life, and you have no idea because you haven't tried it. So basically, keep trying new things and don't fall into a particular habit or structure of routine that you don't come out of at all. Number 2 would be to engage with and do more of what I love. In medical school, you have a lot of time. It may not feel like it really didn't actually at the time, but despite all those lectures and all those things you have to learn, you actually have a lot of spare time. Add on to the fact that you can actually structure your day however you want, and there aren't specific timings because there isn't even a fixed timetable for lectures. You can watch them recorded in the library depending on what uni you're at. I can confidently say that I've never had as much time as I had during medical school, and I'd be very surprised if I'm wrong when I say that it's probably the period of your life where you will have the most amount of time. So if I could go back to uni, I would make the most of that time to do the things that I love, whether that be traveling, spending more time on my hobbies, or spending time with family. Whatever it is that brings you joy, spend more time doing those, because time is the most precious thing that you have, and if I haven't said it enough, you have lots of it in medical school. Number 3, if I could go back to medical school, would be to meet new people and make it a point to do that. So when you start off, you've got Freshers Week, you'll meet lots of different people, and then based on who you go to lectures with and which societies you're part of, you'll slowly but surely start to form a circle of people that you see every day and that you exchange with the most. And typically, I'm not saying for everyone, but typically, including myself, in first year, that circle kind of closes off and stays pretty set for the next couple of years, unless you make an active effort to change that. And the way that you can expand that bubble and make sure you make it join with other bubbles is by making an effort to meet new people through different societies or even outside of uni. A big part of why I love to travel is to be able to meet people who are very different to myself and just exchange with that person and learn what their point of view is and what their opinions on the world are. And I'm not saying it's the only place, but at university, this is basically brought to you. There is so much diversity, so many international students or people who've come from all over the country, and there's so much opportunity to learn and exchange from each other. So if I could go back, I would definitely make more of a conscious effort to do that. Number 3 would be to focus less on the theoretical knowledge and more on the practical stuff. Now, this is difficult to know when you're in medical school because everything seems important, but I could have figured this out if I spoke more to the elder years in my first year. All the detailed molecular pathways and all that, it's very important to have a basic understanding, but there's so much detailed information that you need to memorize for exams, and I spent too much time on those things. And if I could do it again, I would spend more time on understanding and learning about the pathophysiology of common conditions that you see every day in hospital. This is going to be your bread and butter when you start working as a doctor. So I definitely want to focus on solidifying that knowledge instead of trying to focus on too many things. And that is the nature of medicine. You know, you have to learn a little bit about a lot of things. But in medical school, I'd say try and keep the memorizing to an absolute bare necessity of what you need to learn for exams. And I would focus more on understanding the things that will actually help me later on. Point number 5, if I could go back to medical school, would be to go to my placements more often. This was a constant struggle for myself and other medical students, finding the balance between going to your placements, engaging with patients and practicing your clinical skills versus sitting in the library and going through those books and past paper questions for your exams. And both of them are necessary to be a good doctor. You need the knowledge and the practice and the human bedside manner of things that you get by exchanging with patients. But if I had the choice to go back, I'd lean more onto this side because I feel like there's nothing that beats clinical experience. You will learn the theoretical knowledge as well on the job. So if you're really smart about how you plan your clinical day and you're proactive when you're there, not just sit in the corner. I have a whole video about this actually, about advice that I would give for a junior doctor starting off. If you engage with the team, you ask questions, you do clinical examinations and histories on patients, that is invaluable, and I would do more of that. It's so easy to fall into the trap of learning for an exam rather than doing an exam so that you learn to be a good doctor. And I've talked about this in another video in detail, but this is something that I think is very easy to fall into in medical school because you've got all these deadlines and mock exams and real exams, and you're always being tested. So it's only natural to work as hard as you can for them and study as much as you can. But at the end of the day, to be a good doctor, you need to be a good doctor with your patients, and you need to be able to apply that theoretical knowledge to a practical clinical scenario. And that is something you can only acquire with real patients in a hospital. So if I could go back, I'd try to remind myself of the priority, which is to become a good doctor and not to get the best grades. It is a means to an end, and I would focus on having more productive placement days. Now, you may ask me why I made this video and if there's any point at all in ruminating about the past and regretting. And I really don't think this is about regrets, because everything that I've mentioned here and every point that you've thought of and come up with about your university experience, I'm pretty sure that these are all things you can apply to your life now. Yes, we may think of medical school as a period where we had a stimulating environment and lots of time on our hands, but today is literally the next best thing, and you're never going to be as young as you are now. So anything that you'd wish you'd done at university or that you would advise somebody going into university about, why not incorporate it into your life now? You know, whether that be exchanging and meeting new people, or even changing the way that you keep learning about your craft, whether that be medicine or something else, or even changing your mentality or the way that you study or progress in your career. All those things are fully achievable now. So I hope we can use this exercise of thinking back to uni as a way to reset now and to take the things that really matter to us and put them back as our priorities moving forward. I hope you found this video helpful. I'd love to know if there's anything you would change if you could go back to medical school. So drop that in the comments down below. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!